The last thing Daniel Mercer remembered was the cold, not the hospital, not the machines, just cold, spreading through his chest like winter through an old house. He was 63 years old, a father, a businessman, a man his own family had written off years before he ever stopped breathing. When the doctors called it 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, nobody cried. His son checked his watch. His daughter-in-law smoothed her dress, and somewhere across town, a lawyer was already being called. Daniel Mercer had built everything from nothing, worked 40 years with his hands before his hands built an empire. And every single person standing over his coffin that morning, laughing, relieved, celebrating, believed he was gone forever. He wasn't. If you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and tell us where you're watching from. Daniel Mercer grew up in Lansing, Michigan, in a house where the heat got cut off every February. He was the oldest of 4. When his father left, no note, no explanation, just an empty coat hook by the door, Daniel was 11 years old. He became the man of the house before he knew what that meant. He worked. That was the only thing Daniel Mercer ever knew how to do. By 19, he was hauling lumber. By 26, he owned a small contracting firm in Grand Rapids. By 45, Mercer Construction had built half the commercial real estate in western Michigan. But money doesn't buy what Daniel wanted most. His wife, Carol, died of cancer when their son Ryan was just 9 years old. Daniel raised Ryan alone. Job sites, school pickups, fast food dinners in the truck. He gave Ryan everything. Ryan learned to take. By the time Ryan turned 30, he had a wife named Stephanie, polished, ambitious, allergic to anything that didn't have a price tag. Together, they moved into Daniel's house. Together, they convinced Daniel to sign operational control of Mercer Construction over to Ryan. Just to reduce your stress, Dad. You've earned the rest. Daniel believed him. He was 62 when his health started failing. Heart condition. The doctors used careful words. Daniel heard them clearly. He told no one. He kept showing up to the office until Ryan quietly had his keycard deactivated. The morning Daniel collapsed in his own driveway, Ryan was in a meeting. He sent his assistant to the hospital. Not once, in 11 days, did Ryan Mercer sit beside his father's bed. There was one person who came every day. Thomas Briggs was nobody important. He was 61, thick hands, bad knee, a Mercer Construction foreman who had worked under Daniel for 22 years. He drove 40 minutes each way to sit in that hospital chair. He brought bad coffee from the gas station because he knew Daniel hated the hospital kind. He talked to Daniel even when Daniel couldn't talk back. The Hendricks project is behind schedule. New guy can't read blueprints. I've been covering it. Ryan came by the site yesterday, wore clean boots. You always said never trust a man in clean boots. He laughed at his own joke, alone in the room. On the 9th day, Daniel's eyes opened. Not dramatically, not like the movies. He just came back. Slow and confused, like a man walking out of a dark theater into full sunlight. Thomas was the only one there. He grabbed Daniel's hand, said nothing for a long moment. Then, "Took you long enough." Daniel's voice came out like gravel on dry pavement. "How long?" 9 days. Daniel looked at the ceiling, processed that. "Ryan?" Thomas didn't answer immediately. That silence said everything. Daniel turned his head slowly and looked at Thomas Briggs, a man who drove 80 miles round trip for bad coffee and one-sided conversation. He already understood what had happened while he was gone. He understood exactly what had been planned. And something behind his eyes went very, very quiet. Daniel asked Thomas for 2 things: a phone and silence. "Nobody knows I'm awake?" Thomas shook his head. "Nurse on this floor. That's it. I came early. Keep it that way." The call Daniel made lasted 4 minutes. The man on the other end was Gerald Hoyt, an attorney Daniel had used privately for 15 years, not the firm Ryan used, not anyone connected to Mercer Construction. Gerald Hoyt picked up on the second ring. Daniel spoke slowly, deliberately, the way a man speaks when every word costs something. When he hung up, he lay back against the pillow and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Thomas watched him from the chair. "You going to tell me what happened while I was out?" Daniel asked. Thomas pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket, set it on the bed. It was a printed email, sent from Ryan Mercer to Stephanie Mercer 3 days after Daniel collapsed. "Spoke to Dr. Callahan privately. Prognosis isn't good. Start moving on the estate documentation. Better to be prepared." Daniel read it twice, folded it, set it on his chest. He didn't raise his voice, didn't curse, didn't shake. A lesser man would have. Thomas watched him carefully, the way you watch someone you've known long enough to read. He had seen Daniel Mercer angry before. Loud, table-pounding, red-faced, angry. This was different. This was the stillness of a man who had already decided something. "When's the funeral?" Daniel asked quietly. Thomas blinked. "Excuse me?" "Ryan. When did he schedule the funeral?" Thomas cleared his throat. "Friday, 10 a.m. St. Paul's." Daniel nodded slowly, looked at the window. Gray Michigan morning outside, bare trees, flat sky. "I'd like to attend," he said. Thomas Briggs stared at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time in 9 days, he laughed. Daniel looked at Thomas and said only this: "Everything they took, I'm going to take back, every piece of it, but I'm going to do it right." Thomas nodded. No ceremony, no questions. Gerald Hoyt worked through the night, filed 3 documents, quietly, precisely. For 72 hours, Daniel disappeared. Motel 12 minutes from St. Paul's, vending machine food, 4 hours of sleep a night. While Gerald worked, Ryan planned a funeral, flowers ordered, reception catered, obituary submitted to the Grand Rapids Press, Stephanie proofread it twice, changed beloved to dedicated. Friday morning came gray and cold. St. Paul's filled slowly. Business associates, distant relatives, people who owed Daniel something once. Ryan stood at the front, accepting condolences with practiced gravity. Dark suit, clean shoes, the heir, the successor, the man of the hour. The coffin was closed. Nobody questioned it. The door opened at 10:14 a.m. Daniel Mercer walked in wearing a gray suit and leather shoes, worn soft with years of use. Slow, deliberate, giving every person in that room exactly enough time to understand what they were seeing. Stephanie made a sound without a category. A distant relative from Cleveland fainted clean off her pew. Ryan Mercer went the color of paper. Daniel didn't look at him. He walked to the front, stood beside his own coffin, faced the room. Silence. Then, quietly, evenly, without a single trace of rage: "I'd like my company back." Gerald Hoyt stepped through the door behind him, documents already in hand. Ryan kept his shares, minority shares. Daniel was not a vindictive man, but Ryan Mercer never set foot in a Mercer Construction office again. Thomas Briggs was promoted to operations director that spring. He still brings bad coffee. Daniel still complains. Ryan and Stephanie moved to Phoenix. Someone else's company, someone else's name on the building. Daniel still shows up to job sites, still checks the boots. He told one interviewer the following year, "I didn't come back from the dead to be angry. I came back to finish what I built." Some men work their whole lives and never know what they're worth. Daniel Mercer found out on a Friday morning, in a church full of people who forgot that you should never celebrate before it's over.